Can you hear me, Bill? Okay. There's such a lag on my end that it's hard to tell. Well, they're getting mushrooms up here now. Buddy was out today and got a couple, or more than a couple, but no, the weather's really sucked up here. It's been real cold the first 3 days, Monday through Wednesday, and I was gonna work on it today a little bit, but it was storming when I got out of work. So it's cleared up out there now, but hopefully tomorrow I can get some work done on it and then maybe get it in the water by Sunday because I can work on it Saturday all day. In reality, I should only have about 3 hours worth of work left to do on it. The bottom is all painted up now. Like I said, my friend went out today after work. He was out about a half an hour and he got more than enough to stack them on top of two burgers, and he probably got about 35 or 40 of them. So I'll be going out tomorrow after work for an hour or so, check a couple of my spots that should have them. Yeah, that's he was real real excited about it. I mean, he messaged me as soon as he got back in from the woods and said, "Hey, sent me a picture of them." Got a new website up. I'm still got a lot of stuff to add to it, but if you ever want to check it out, whereabouts are you at, anyways, county wise? Because I know they're getting some over by Clare, Roscommon area as well. You just got to find sunny spots. Fresh clear cuttings are working out pretty good right now. Yep. Any place that's getting some sun, burn areas will be good too. I said that was kind of exciting news to find out the mushrooms were out because we've been getting into the 20s at night down here, or over here, I should say. But I'm up in Benzie County. I'm a couple miles from Crystal Mountain Resort, and we've got them coming up out here. I'm sure Mesick has some too. Yes, it has. I said only in Michigan can you have sunburn one day and frostbite the next. We should be getting some smelt tonight out by Arcadia. The water's right on the verge of temperature again, so that should bring them in. I know they're getting some smelt over by Singing Bridge. Yeah, I haven't gotten no reports from Wisconsin, but I'm sure they're in the same situation as us, um, midway through the state. I know their northern part of their state was quite a bit colder than we were here. They were more like our upper peninsula. Inland lakes are just starting to open up in the UP right now. At least that's a report that I got from a buddy of mine. Steelhead, or catching steelhead all the way north from Muskegon all the way to basically Mackinac City. Any streams you're going to find steelhead in. Um, all the piers are catching steelhead, lake trout, and an occasional brown off the piers. If you're fishing in Manistee, you have a chance of catching a walleye. But as long as you're off the pier, you can keep it. But if you're inside the pier head, not the pier head, but the land where the pier meets, can't keep them there. They're closed in Manistee. You got to be out in that water that's considered the Great Lake. They're still picking up coho from Ludington south. By Ludington, it's hit or miss, but they're getting a few. Yeah, and they got a lot of snow this week up in the UP. I know. I don't know. I'm not sure about Wisconsin. I did get a report they're getting a few smelt up in Lake Superior already. That was kind of mind-boggling, but that water's still super cold. And then from Marquette west, they're catching coho on smaller spoons. Walleye are going nuts on the Detroit River. They're picking some up in the St. Clair River as well. And you can be using jigs and with Mr. Twisters. You can troll plugs, crawler harnesses, anything like that. Oh wow, snowing up by Superior. I guess that shouldn't surprise me. We were at 29 this morning when I left for work, but it warmed up pretty quick. It got to about 36 by 10 a.m. But we had thunderstorms coming in. They were from the time I left my house for work this morning. There was thunder and lightning, rain. And then by 4 o'clock or so, it had warmed up into the mid 40s, upper mid 40s. Menominee River. Yeah, I've heard hit or miss things on Menominee River, so I'm glad to hear that they're on fire up there. I may have to venture up there next weekend. Little Bay Dinock opened up yet, or is it still got some ice flowing around in it? Oh wow, you guys were warmer than us Sunday. I think we only got into the 60s Sunday. Yeah, it's one place I haven't gotten a report from in the last 15 days or so. Usually the guy I know up there calls and lets me know. I should send him an email tonight. Because if there's no ice on it, they should be smashing the perch there. Then Big Bay to knock out by Fayette should be pretty good with perch. I know they're still getting perch in Manistee Lake down in Manistee. I'll show you one of my secret little baits for walleye. I catch so many walleye on this particular bait, it's ridiculous. It's made by Rebel, and it imitates a crawdad. And you can run all different sizes of it. Another good lure. And you can run these together. You don't have to change speeds. That stupid glare. But wiggle warts work real well too for walleye off planer boards. I've never ran them off the little boards, only the big boards with releases, and they just smoke the walleye from Lake Erie all the way up to Little Bay Dinock. I've even used them on Long Lake here by Interlocking and gotten fish. with that crawdad impersonator, and they make them in different colors, but that one's always putting fish in the boat. I mean, from the time I worked on a charter boat back in '87, we were catching them on it before that too, because it's my friend's dad I worked for, and I've still been catching them, and it's 2023 on that particular lure. 2.0 miles per hour. So you want to troll with your average speed maintaining between 1.8 and 2.2. That seems to be the way to drag them. Next week I'll cover another little ace in the hole using a number 7 flatfish and exactly how to troll that. You got a boat you're going to be putting in the water pretty soon? Okay. Um, I'm assuming it's got a 2-stroke outboard on it. What I would recommend doing is getting a set of spark plugs for that. Start it up on the old spark plugs. I'm assuming that you had it fogged or you fogged it back in the fall. And those plugs are going to be junk after fogging. Put a new set of spark plugs in it and start it up with it attached to the hose via a pair of muffs. And something I've been seeing a lot of in the past couple of weeks is guys starting up without water. That's the worst thing they can do. Because it don't take much to heat that pump up, and then it'll take a form, and then it doesn't pump as much water, and it'll prematurely go bad on you. Just like when you heat up a piece of plastic, it bends, and then you cool it real quick, it keeps that bend. All them rubber/neoprene vanes on the water pump impeller do the same thing. Very much so. I've got stacks of them that I've been doing. Guys are like, oh, I only started it for 30 seconds. Doesn't even take that long. Always double check your gear lube before you start it up. Because a lot of guys, when they winterize them, they fill them up. They're filling them up by hand until the gear lube just comes out. And it traps a lot of air in there. We actually pump out about 5 or 6 ounces after it comes out because it's just pushing nothing but air bubbles out. So if somebody just goes until it's coming out, it's going to be probably only half full. Yep, put the ears on it. Best way to do it. Now they say, if you're going to do a spring start, you might as well check all your electrical, your lights, your horn, um, anything like that. It's easier to fix it when you're right there than it is out on the water. Charge the battery, obviously. It's also a good time to shoot some grease in your wheel hubs. Check the electrical on the trailer because mice will chew those wires. And then if that's a two-stroke outboard, um, if it's running a little bit rough, get yourself a product from a Mercury dealer called Power Tune and spray it in the carburetor while the engine's running, just like you would fogging oil until you get this nice white smoke. Or stall the engine with it, to turn the engine off, let it sit about 15 or 20 minutes, then start her back up and you'll see all kinds of carbon come out. There'll be chunks if you're in real bad shape. But that'll clean off your jug head, cylinder head. If you got a four-stroke engine, it'll clean off the valves and everything else. It cleans the rings out. It just helps everything run a lot better. At the shop I work at, we do that with all the spring starts. We power tune them. Just gets all that sticky fogging oil out of there too. It's called Power Tune by Mercury. Evinrude Johnson has one that's the similar. It's a similar thing. It's just a spray. I can't remember what the Evinrude Johnson variation's called, but the Mercury Power Tune. It's got a funky smell to it when it's being burnt. But that stuff's a lifesaver. It'll take an engine that doesn't idle very well, and she'll just start purring like a kitten for you. I use it on my big boat about every 3 weeks or so because trolling on my boat, it starts to load up, because I got it idling at 500 RPM instead of 750 to keep the boat slowed down. So every once in a while she'll start hesitating, or I'll even have it stall out on the lake a couple times while I'm trolling. And then I go back in and I power tune it. Of course, when I'm doing it on that boat, I'm leaving it sit for half an hour before I start it back up. But after that, no problem. Then about 3 weeks later, got to do it again. And one can should last you, well, one can last me a season from April to November. So it don't take a whole lot. Probably last you 2 years. Just keep it someplace warm in the winter. Because like any spray can, it'll lose its sprayability if it gets too cold. That pontoon boat would be a dream out on Little Bay Denok on most days for walleye fishing. Yeah, there's two good products that I use. Both are from Mercury. One is the Power Tune, and then the other one's an additive I'll put in my gas. And it's called Quick Clean. And I was never a believer in stuff like that until I worked at the first marine I was at. And we had some people come in. They had an old 15 horsepower Johnson, and it obviously needed a carb rebuild. They didn't have the money to even buy the parts for it. And I said, you know what? Let me see if I can do something with this. And we got our little shop tank, and I always triple dose it. So instead of 1 ounce for 5 gallons, I put in 3 ounces. And I drained their carburetor, refilled it back up with our shop tank, started it up, and I could get it started, but you had to use the choke and everything else to keep it running. And I let it run for a couple of minutes, shut her down, let her sit an hour, went back out there, started up, and the thing would idle. without the choke on, and it would run. So it actually saved them a complete carburetor rebuild, and I've seen that happen 5 or 6 times in the years I've been using it. And if you got a fuel injected engine, that's a good product to run year round in there, because it'll keep them injectors from clogging up. Yeah, that's an expensive bottle though. That's like a 13-ounce bottle, and it's probably like $14 or $15, but it does work. I won't ever recommend something that I haven't tried before, and that stuff works. I'm a cheapskate and I pay for it. And then, of course, the manufacturers and that recommend you should be running some kind of stable in your gas all the time. And the reason behind that is with all the oxygenizers that they're putting in the fuel, as soon as it comes from the refinery, it's starting to lose its octane level, or from the depots, I should say. And it's not like gas when we were kids. You could leave it sit in the garage for 3 months, pour it out into something, and it'd run like a top. No, this stuff starts smelling stinky after a month in the garage. Starts smelling like the varnish. So always add a little bit of stabilizer. And the stabilizer I recommend it's a bluish stabilizer. A bunch of different companies make it, but the one that um, we use the most is either Sierra or Startron, and it's specially made for fuels that have ethanol in them. And of course, ethanol free. Yeah, that's a better gas, but it's still got the oxygenizers in it. The ethanol will start eating up your fuel lines in your outboards and seals inside the carburetor, but the oxygenizers, they just cause the gas to go bad a lot quicker. It's all part of the federal pollution control. They have to add it to their gas. But the Sartron or the Sierra treatment, it's colored blue. And what I noticed with the old stables is it leaves little particles in the carburetor. It don't like the new gas. Yep. Yep. I remember old regular leaded gas. Heck, my first boat with an IO, it required leaded gas. I had to run the valve tech solution in it to keep the valves from burning out. It was a 1967 sport craft. And the heads just weren't made for, or the valves, I should say, weren't made for unleaded fuel. It'd burn them out if you ran unleaded fuel in it for too long. Now, if your outboard motor is oil injection, take a feel of your oil injection lines and make sure they don't feel oily, because those things can develop cracks over the years. And when they're sitting over the winter, that's when they seem to suddenly start leaking. You better catch it while you're on shore than when you're out in the water and it completely breaks off. Starts leaking oil everywhere, not except to the engine. Yeah, the old outboards, it doesn't matter. You can run unleaded in them. You can run regular in them. They'll eat it all. They don't care. It's the IOs you got to watch before 1972. Anything built before 1972, you have to run valve tech in it to protect the valves. See, lead lubricated the valves and helped keep them cool. And without the lead, they heat up and then they just start burning out. You'll actually see them dish. They'll get so hot they'll dish. They'll look like an umbrella. Then they don't seal, and of course that's a compression loss. And yeah, that's the same thing we had down here. That's why I didn't take the shrink wrap off my boat. Didn't feel like dealing with that. Plus, I was just darn cold after working all day outside. We got an awning that we work under, so it wasn't like I was soaking, sopping wet, but the cold got to me. I just kind of came home and sat in front of my little space heater until I warmed up and started a new website this week, so that took up some of my time at least. These stupid things. Yes, it does. Yep. And it was a cold, wet wind to boot. I think that was the worst part of it was the feels like temperature because it was just so damp out. I know yesterday supposedly we were at 46 degrees at like 2 o'clock, but the feels like temperature was 29 where we were working because we go out and wrench on the boat for 20-25 minutes, go back inside, warm up for 5 or 6, and go back out. Then I had to put a horn in the guy's boat, so I was laying down on the floor and that was soaking, sopping wet from snow being in it. I was smart and I put the cardboard down, but it came right through the cardboard. It's a process. I've got about 6 or 7 hours in on it is all on the website, but I'm gonna add a lot more, and I'm gonna add a members only section too to it. It gets popular enough, and I'll put a like a flea market page on it where if somebody wants to sell something, they can post it. Like fishing equipment, sporting goods. It's not going to be clothes or anything like that. It's just going to be for sporting goods. Maybe some guys can get some good deals on stuff. Yeah, I'm running a tournament right now. Free to enter. Just send me a picture of your fish with the date on it, and you're entered in, and I'll post them all on. I got a Facebook page, COTW Outdoors on Facebook, and I'll post them on there, and then I'll make a video of them, and the ones that get person that gets the most likes wins. If I have one entry and they got one like, they win the $25 gift certificate. I'm sure it's going to take a few weeks for people to find the live feed. Now, I'm going to throw this out there for people too. If you're having a problem with your trailer lights after the winter, the first thing to check is the white wire off the plug that plugs into your car. That should be grounded to the trailer frame. That is 99% of the problems with trailer lights. I work on trailers daily with the boats, and 99% of the trailer lights not working. That's what it is. That wire needs to be hooked up to it, and they have a tendency, I think ice or something gathers, they have a tendency of shearing off at the little ring connector. And the other 1% of things that cause problems with the trailer lights is, yeah, that really helps. Just loosen it up and tighten it back up. That breaks away any loose rust and actually helps. But the other 1% of problems is blown bulbs, or mice got up inside the trailer and ate the wires. Yeah, that's actually a really good tip. You probably should loosen up that screw and tighten it up automatically. Yeah, mice are a pain in the neck. I've gotten to a point with a couple of my trailers, because I got 4 boats right now. I take a handful of mothballs and shove them inside of it, push them in with a broom handle as far as I can get on each rail. That seems to help. And then same thing I do inside the boat. I put a bag of mothballs in at the engine compartment, another bag down in the cabin, if it's got a cabin on it. That I had some raccoons get into my one boat a couple years ago, and they chewed up some of my styrofoam. They didn't cut any of my wires, luckily, but they sure tore some of that styrofoam out, the flotation styrofoam. And then it was the spring of the year, and I'm wondering how I'm going to get them out. So I just dropped a bag of mothballs down in there, and Mama Coon moved her babies out. So I was able to get the boat on the water. I'm close to putting the big boat on the water, too. I've got it almost all completely rewired now. Yeah, yeah. Do the same thing with your boat, because they'll get in there. People, you're supposed to leave the drain plug out, obviously. And when the snow gets deep enough, they'll shoot right in through the drain plugs, the hole back there. Them little buggers, it's amazing the little bit of nothing that they can get in. Oh, one more thing while I'm thinking about it. A lot of people have the tattletale stream of water that comes out to let them know it's pumping water. And I've had 3 of them in this year so far where the guy said, "Hey, it's not pumping water." And well, let me see if I can save you some money, and I'll hook it up to the hose. Those don't have a lot of pressure on them. So what you want to do is take a bread tie, something like this, and just stick it up that hole and wiggle it around while the engine's running and the water's on. Spiders and ants get up in there, and them things just don't have the pressure to push them out unless they get wiggled a little bit. Everybody thinks they're under high pressure, and they're really not. There's very little pressure coming out of that little, as we call it in the industry, the pisser hole. So that can save you guys some hassle of dropping a lower unit to replace a water pump impeller when it doesn't need to be replaced. Always check that first. There's a lot of guys out there that still have some of the old Evinrudes and Johnsons with the VRO pumps on them. And one of the common reasons they don't start in the spring is maybe they disconnected the fuel line to run it out of gas. Um, Oil gets into the carburetor and fills it up. If you unplug your fuel line, it's pumping oil in there. And what you got to do is take off the front cover. There are 8mm screws going around the side. And then there'll be 1/7/16. Sometimes it's a nut, sometimes it's a screw. 90% of them are a nut. You take that off, pull off that front cover, and then you take off the screws that hold the back part of the plastic cover off. Pull that off. There'll be 2 drains, one on each carburetor, and those run a 7/16 as well. Just run a 1/4-inch drive socket that's in 7/16. Loosen it up, open it up, and you'll see that the oil will just drain out. Plug in your gas line, squeeze the bulb until you get gas coming out of there. It'll have an oil mixture, obviously, but you'll see it's mostly gas. Put your plugs back in, and she'll fire right up. That's real common, and as the motor gets older, it can do it even when the gas line isn't unplugged, because gas evaporates, oil really doesn't. And as the gas evaporates out of the float bowl, of course, you got pressure from the oil pump, and that's just dropping a little bit of oil in there and filling it right back up. And you can test it to see if it's all oil, because one, it's going to smoke. If you fogged it, it's going to smoke anyways. But you get yourself a can of good carburetor cleaner, not starter fluid, carburetor cleaner. And if you spray it in there while it's running and it keeps running, and then you quit hitting it with the carburetor cleaner and it dies, that usually indicates everything there. And you'll notice that it'll smoke a lot. Well, carburetor cleaner ain't going to make it smoke. It's oil, but you almost never get it out of that carburetor without draining it. I've tried. I've dealt with that for 28 years. And it's only the VROs. If you're starting up an IO, and if your fuel pump is a little bit weak, or you were low on gas and had to add some into it, take a little bit of gas, put it in an old cleaned out oil bottle with a gear lube tip on it. It's got the little nozzle on it. Just pour it in through the carburetor vent until you see it coming out inside the throttle throats. You're good to go. You start it up, and you'll have enough gas, and it'll run at a high enough RPM that it'll pull the fuel from the tank, unless your pickup got broke off in the winter, which I have seen happen. But if it don't prime up there, there's something else going on. And it's usually not a fuel pump unless it's an electric fuel pump. And I know guys that have put primer bulbs on their fuel line. Don't do that. That's just a fire hazard, an explosion hazard waiting to happen. And if the Coast Guard sees it, they'll make you take it off too. Okay, I said I would cover some sinker mold preparation. And what I'm going to work with today, and I've owned this mold since I was about 13 years old and have never used it. I Okay, have a good one, Bill. Thanks for stopping in. But anyways, I bought this when I was about 13 years old, never used it. Finally bought some hooks for it. Just got them this week. And as you can see, the mold is nice and silvery. Hopefully it's showing up there. Okay, they'll try to tell you that you need a release agent that you got to buy constantly. You do not need a release agent. I have sold sinkers by the 100 pounds. I've probably sold to bait shops 50,000 pounds of sinkers at least. I used to supply bait shops when I was in my teens, and I still supply sinkers to some people now and then. But what you do, take a candle, any kind of candle. Okay. I happen to have this one around because I don't have any birthday candles right now. Light it. Okay. Take your mold. Hold it upside down, obviously. Get it right in there. And you got to turn it as black as you can. You'll need to wiggle it a little bit, obviously. Okay. What you want it to look like is that. Okay. And I'm going to do the other side real quick because I'll be using this mold. I won't be tonight, but I want to make up some walleye jigs. Then I'm going to show you one other quick trick. Like I said, you can use a birthday candle for this technique. Old timer showed me this, and I'll tell you what, it works like a charm. I've made 18-pound cannonballs using this technique and had no problem whatsoever. Okay, so got this side done. Now you can take a paper towel and wipe off the excess. I never bother with it because when you make enough of these, you got to redo this every now and then. But okay, where you pour your lead in at, Same thing. It will flow much faster and smoother with this done. Oh, got a flock of geese flying by the house. And once I'm able to, I'll put the sinker molding or making on camera. I'll try to do it live one night. I won't be able to make the big ones with it, but I can pour little ones like these. I got a Lee bullet or Lee melting pot that's more made for bullet molds, but little molds like this will fit underneath it, and you can shut it on and off real easy. And with this particular mold, because it doesn't have the clamp on the handle, that's how old it is, and it's a Palmer mold. Use a C-clip to hold it. Don't hold on to the handle. The handle will get hot. All right, your first batch of sinkers that you're going to put through it, or jig heads, don't use no hooks. Just pour the lead through it. Flip the lead out into a pan, an old pan that you're never going to use for cooking. Then put the hooks in it and pour your jigs. Okay, you want to get that mold preheated. Don't stick it on the stove and heat it with flames. That makes these hinges all screwed up. All right, now one of the other problems people have is it doesn't like to hold the hooks, or in the case of a sinker eye. All right, the trick to that I've used, and this I kind of taught myself, was syrup, Caro syrup. Take it, put a little bit in like a lid of some kind. Take a toothpick, dab it on the part where the hook eye is going to be, and that'll help hold it in place. With the sinker eyes, it works real good. The molds that are the biggest pain with the sinker eyes are your cannonball molds, because they want to keep dropping in. But you just dab that sinker or that syrup in there, and it's sticky enough that it helps hold them. You'll have to replace that, well, on an 18-pound cannonball, probably every other cannonball, because it will burn out of there. That mold's going to get hotter than a fire with 18 pounds of melted lead in it. Most sinkers, like 1-pound cannonballs, 2-ounce pencil sinkers, a bank sinker assortment, Dipsy sinker, pour it, set your pot down, walk over, open it up, slam them down. Put your eyes in, pour more. You can. I've pounded out 25 pounds of sinkers in an hour at 2 ounces a piece. Now my pencil sinker molds that I have make 6 at a time, so 12 ounces. And it takes longer to melt the lead than it does to pour the sinkers. All right. Never get your mold wet. If your mold gets wet, if it's just too hot for you and you actually drop it in some water or something, completely and thoroughly dry it out before you use it. If there is even a half a drop of water in there, when you pour that lead in there, it's going to explode back out. So, safety when you're doing that. Okay. Um, what else did we want to cover? The rules for the free fishing tournament. Okay, they're posted on my website. I haven't been able to get it to lock in yet, but I'll type that out. There is no charge for the tournament. Just take a picture of the fish with the date on it. You can write yourself a piece of paper. You can have it pinned to your shirt. I don't care. As long as it shows the date that it was got in and it wasn't photoshopped in. I will run it through my scanner. If it's been photoshopped in, it'll let me know. But I don't think anybody's going to be cheating over a $25 gift certificate. Okay, you got to have an email address. If you're a kid, you can use mom and dad's email address. Make sure they're okay with it. And if you win, your gift certificate will come to that email address. And it'll be good for $25 on Amazon. I have an adult division and I have a youth division. This is the first tournament I'm running, but I'm going to be running them constantly throughout the year. Um, this month is a $25 gift certificate. I'm still playing around with things for next month, but it might be a tackle box loaded with tackle, all brand new. So check that out. Feel free to enter. Um, if you want to see more of these streams, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Because it all helps me. I'm not gonna sit and beg people to subscribe, but the more subscribers I get, and I got to get up to 1,000, I can go live while I'm out on my boat. You can actually see the fishing as it's happening. So that's my key right now. And you don't have to hit the alert button, so you're not seeing everything I post. But if you want to find out about tournaments or the live streams, and I'll go live occasionally throughout the week to do fishing reports and stuff like that. And if you want to be alerted to that, well, then hit the alert button. But, yeah, that's my goal, is to go live on the boat. And I'm working toward my charter captain license as well. I think it'd be real cool, if I got family with some kids on it that are on the boat during a charter or something, and maybe grandma and grandpa want to watch them fish, they can tune right in and watch it. I've got my eye on a camera that won't eat up batteries every 11 minutes, and I'll be able to plug it right in on my boat into the inverter, and it can video the entire trip if I want it to. But in order to go live from anything but my ding laptop here, sitting at home for some reason, I've tried it out on the boat to go live, and it just won't do it. Neither will my phone. You got to have them, that 1,000 viewers. How they know, I have no clue, but they know. Any suggestions for anything else I can cover for next week? If you think of something, you can pop it in here or send me an email, and I'll do my best to cover it. Well, that'd be great, Bill. I'd appreciate that. I'm definitely hoping to get out fishing this weekend so I can pop in another video. I had so much footage from down in Florida, and just none of it's usable. That GoPro just didn't do a good job with the wind and everything else. Or the lighting wasn't great enough, or the fish was too far out when it was jumping. hours and hours of footage, and I got, what, 20 minutes at tops that was usable. Then ice fishing up in Muniskin Bay, I had uh, probably 45 minutes of battling fish on video, so I thought, but my camera froze up. It turned on, it shows a still shot. You could hear me talking, and you could hear the reel buzzing offline, but you couldn't see nothing. So I didn't post none of that. So that's why I gotta invest in a better camera. All right, well, I guess we'll call it a night right here. You need to get dinner. And I haven't eaten yet myself, so um, I'll see you again next week, I hope. And tight lines, and have a good night. And thanks for watching Call the Wild Outdoors.